Hey there, this is a Morgana counter video intended to fill you in on everything you need to know to deal with Morgana when she's on the opposite team. If there's any champion you find yourself struggling with in your solo queue games and you're tired of banning it, then feel free to drop a comment and let us know. If you're interested in learning more about Morgana or any other champion, then head on over to the Mobalytics website where you can see everything you need to know, including builds, combos, pro builds, tips and more. So first off, what does Morgana do? Morgana is a control heavy mage that can deal an immense amount of damage while also protecting her teammates. Morgana has game-changing CC potential with a binding and ultimate, and she also has one of the most unique spells in the game in a black shield, which protects herself or her ally from CC. So let's hone in on Morgana's strengths and weaknesses. First off with her strengths, Morgana can be picked into multiple roles such as mid, jungle and support, making her one of the most safe and flexible picks in League of Legends. More recently, she has been very popular in the jungle and is proving to be a strong pick in all rankings. Morgana has insane crowd control capabilities with the binding and ultimate, making it incredibly useful throughout the game and even if she is behind. She has fast wave clear and jungle clear with her demented soil, and to top that off she has an amazing CC prevention shield on her E. Looking at her weaknesses, she's very easy to shut down if she mistimes her black shield, she struggles against high mobility champions that can dodge her Q and outrun her ultimate, and she's very vulnerable in 1v1s if she misses her binding. We're going to dive in specifically how to counter Morgana, but first is an overview of the major tips that we'll be breaking down further in this video. So first, respect her binding. Morgana's main source of damage comes from landing this ability and then following it up with a tormented soil. Try to dodge this at all costs, hide behind minions or tanky teammates to make it easier. Next is to punish her black shield cooldown. When she's used this ability, she is now very easy to punish, try to bait her out and then re-engage to take her down. Remember, it has a long cooldown early game, so the window is pretty huge. Distance yourself from her ultimate. Save your mobility cooldowns and get away from her ultimate tether range. If she successfully lands it, she'll follow that with a dark binding and you'll probably be dead. Remember her Zhonya's. Don't forget that Morgana almost always takes Zhonya's to pair it up with her ultimate. Don't let her bait you into thinking you can take her down and play around it, and be sure to press tab and check her items for when it's completed or when she has a stopwatch. Don't underestimate her damage. Morgana is always known for her CC and utility, but don't forget just how much damage she does. She can easily take you down if she lands her CC. If you're going into a game against a Morgana, there's a solid basis to remember and will help you be successful. It's always good to think about when a champion is strongest or weakest. Morgana is strong throughout the whole game, but she excels in mid to late game team fighting, which you can benefit the most from a high utility kit. Morgana does not necessarily have a weak point in the game, however early game her cooldowns are a lot longer, and therefore this is where you'll want to punish her. Now let's take a look at her early game. If you're laning against Morgana, you'll want to make sure to be aware of her pushing potential and don't sit in her tormented soil so that she'll inevitably use it to push the wave. You can use the fog or water to your advantage, as you can't react as easily with her black shield. Alternatively, try to bait out her binding and black shield with a fake trade and then re-engage when those abilities are on cooldown. If you're jungling vs Morgana, you'll want to be aware of her insanely fast clear times and try not to get behind in experience. Focus on fighting over those early scuttle crabs, and as long as you dodge her binding, she'll not be able to do much damage to you at all. Look to invade Morgana, but wait for her to use a Q on a jungle camp before you engage. She's extremely vulnerable to this, as she is heavily reliant on you standing still to deal damage with her W. Make sure not to face check any of your lane brushes when you don't know where Morgana is, as it makes it nearly impossible to avoid her binding. Generally, Morgana is at her most punishable stage early game due to those important abilities having a high cooldown. Always try to dodge that binding and bait out that spell shield before you fight. This can be an easy way to get an advantage over it and make the rest of the game easier for yourself. Now let's look at Morgana's mid game. Outside of the laning phase, Morgana will be looking to make picks and protect her teammates in teamfights. Try to open the map up with plenty of wards and keep an eye on her whereabouts so you don't walk into any bindings. By the mid game, Morgana will have her Zhonya's and be looking to teamfight around that and her ultimate. Try to keep away from it in tight spaces and be ready to punish her when she comes out of the stasis effect. Alternatively, if you time it correctly around a black shield, you can use certain CC abilities to stop her from getting a good ultimate off. Remember, in any fight, there will always be a black shield opportunity for her, whether that's on herself or her teammates. Be ready to punish it when it's on cooldown, or look to catch her or her allies when they are split. As Morgana is a utility mage, she prefers to stick with her teammates. When she's alone, she's nowhere near as strong. Now finally, onto Morgana's late game. In the late game, Morgana will not only have all the CC and utility that we've spoken about before, but will be on a much lower cooldown. She'll do a ton more damage. By this point, she'll be incredibly strong and will be looking for any opportunity to make a pick or get stuck into a team fight. The best way to counter Morgana late game is to split her up from her teammates. Try to catch her or one of her teammates out before a fight and remove the chance for a 5v5. Split up. A great choice for heavy team fighting champions like Morgana is to split your team up into multiple lanes. Opting for a 1-3-1 or just a simple one-man split push is a great way to break the enemy team up and force them to deal with your pressure across the map. If they come to deal with your split, You can punish them elsewhere or just take them down if you're feeling brave enough. In late game teamfights, you'll want to be wary of Morgana's teammates. If she has teammates you can set up and engage first, you can easily follow those engages with a huge AoE ultimate. Try to factor in her ally champion's engage potential and judge whether or not those fights are worth taking. Remember, if you don't have the better teamfighting composition, you won't want to be encouraging these scenarios around dragons or barons and will need to play for picks instead. Now let's look at itemization. So in terms of building items against Morgana, the best has to be QSS. It's by far the most important in our opinion, and the amount of CC that you can pull off is far more than most champions and is key to maximizing her damage against you. This item is a no-brainer for physical champions, and if you are playing a mage, consider taking Cleanse instead. Mercury Treads is another great item choice for heavy CC champions like Morgana. Banshee's Veil or Edge of Night, both will give you a chance to block a binding with your spell shield. This can be the difference between a win or a loss, especially in the late game. Next is Shirelia's Battle Song, and this is a fantastic item to pick up against Morgana as you can give yourself and allies a huge movement speed boost, allowing you all to escape Morgana's ultimate. And finally, Magic Resist. A somewhat obvious choice, but we advise taking a good amount of Magic Resist versus Morgana, especially if the allies also have a good amount of magic damage between them. Items like Force of Nature or Abyssal Mask can be huge at bringing Morgana's damage down. That wraps everything up for a Morgana counter video. If you enjoyed this video, then you can find more counter videos on our website or in the playlist link below, and be sure to subscribe to be alerted for when we cover a new champion. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again.